Hello, this is a video I've been wanting to make for a little while, and it's not going to talk about what I usually talk about. It's going to talk about something different that I haven't spoken about in years and years and years, and that's digital cameras. As you know, photography is a hobby of mine, and newer is not necessarily better. That was a point I made years ago, and that point still rings true today. In this video, we're going to look over the change from the CCD sensors in the past to the CMOS sensors most digital cameras are using today. Many manufacturers switch to CMOS because it performs better in low light, and you can shoot full HD video. It's got better, it's got less noise at higher ISOs, and it's faster, and it uses less energy. However, there's a major sacrifice that's been going on, well, at least with the Canon Powershot cameras. The CCD cameras were able to render greens and foliage as well as skies fairly accurately. However, when Canon switched to the CMOS sensors, I noticed that the skies and the foliage is not rendered properly. The U, that's HUE, is off on a lot of the newer Canon, when Canon made the switch. And they made the switch several years ago, quite a few years ago actually, probably 3 or 4 years ago at least. Most of their cameras went to CMOS. And as a result, when you're taking a picture outside on a sunlit day, you will notice that the sky has shifted way toward blue, and the skies are generally a not completely blue, but a mix of green and blue, or a mix of aqua or cyan blue, CYAN. All right, but no matter what you do with these CMOS cameras that they make, you cannot properly get those greens and those cyan colors to be possible, because the hue of the skies and the hue of the greens is shifted quite a bit. And it has trouble with yellows. Now, pitch pines, and most pines in general, are a yellowish green. They're not just green. But most of the CMOS sensor cameras that Canon has, they render them just green. And, I've talked about, I've tried different suggestions from different people. Oh, why don't you use a gray card? I've tried that. Why don't you fool around with the my colors? Why don't you use a different white balance? We've tried all those things. So what I'm going to go over in this video is you're going to see the difference between photos taken with older Canon CCD sensored powered cameras, such as the A620, such as the G11, and those will be compared to the newer generation of Canon Powershots. I mean, I don't have the latest cameras, obviously, for somebody on a budget like me, but I've got a few of the CMOS cameras, and the one I use the most is the L330HS. So I also have an S110. And those will compare the images between those two cameras, and you will see the issues that I'm talking about with sky hue and greens, foliage. And this is a problem. I mean, if you're out shooting, 95% of the shots I take are outdoor shots in sunlight. The CMOS sensors of the Canon Powershots don't seem to be rendering colors correctly, like the CCD sensors. Now, CCD has some disadvantages, mainly that it does use more energy, that it doesn't perform as well at high ISO, and that it's slower. But for daylight photography of landscapes and pine barrens and that kind of thing, the CCD is superior. And did you know that NASA, that's right, NASA, most of the sensors they use in the space telescopes are still CCD based. They don't use CMOS sensors. CMOS is, I think the camera manufacturers have just switched to it because it's cheaper for them. And as a result, it's cheaper for them, and people like the fact, oh, we can shoot HD, we can take snapshots in low light without a tripod and all that. But that comes at the expense of daylight image quality. And so I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on this. So let's take a look at some pictures, and I'll be right back. Alright, I just want to do a brief overview of the cameras here that Canon's made over the years. This will be very brief. I mean, there's some data in here that, it's technical. But I'll show you the A620, the A570IS, the A710S. These are the cameras, some of the best point-and-shoot cameras Canon ever made.
They took AA batteries, had great image quality in daylight, and all of them had great image quality in daylight. The A600 was definitely one of my favorites because it had the articulated screen. And again, they use the CCD sensor, so they're accurate. The colors are very accurate from all of these cameras here. Great for taking pictures daylight. Took AA batteries, manual control, aperture, shutter speed, all that good stuff. Nice grip, and so they didn't look stylish. Who cares about that? And you can also remove these rings around here and attach filters to these cameras, all these cameras. The Prosumer series here, which is in the middle, the G12 and the S95, use CCD sensors also. So these all use CCDs. And all these cameras here on this side take great images in daylight. The Prosumer ones obviously have a slightly bigger sensor, have some more features, can shoot in RAW, and the S90, S95, G11, G12, great cameras, take accurate daylight photos. I have to say that those were very good cameras. And when Canon moved to the CMOS sensor here, they the G series, the G12, the G series got segmented. The G15 has a CMOS sensor and has the same problems with colors as the S110, which I have. Same problem rendering sky hues and greens properly. I've seen from sample images. I would never buy a G12 because of that. It's not cheap. I mean a G15 because of that. Excuse me there. G15 is a discontinued model. They have the G16 now. S110, again, it's got a fast lens. That's the thing about these S series. They do have a fast lens, but so does the S95. Has a fast lens. Actually, it's faster than the S110 to some extent. The S95 and G12 have a 28mm wide angle, and the A series here have a 35. So that's the advantage with the Prosumer. You do get the 28mm. However, when they went to the S110, they made it 24mm. And when they went to the S100, I should say, and that's when they switched to the CMOS sensor. But the colors from these CMOS cameras here on the right are not as good. This is the 330HS over here, and then it's the newest camera here from Canon, the G7X. Which has a 1-inch sensor. So it's a much larger sensor, but it's 20 megapixels. It's too many megapixels. All these cameras on the left you see were all 7 megapixels and took great images. They're cramming too many megapixels onto these cameras, and that also has an effect on lowering image quality. I think we've taken a step back here. Canon, you need to start making these cameras here on the left again. They may not be stylish, but they took great images in daylight. And as far as somebody who takes pictures of trees and nature, that's all I care about, really. HD video, low light shooting is nice. There's some nice good things about CMOS cameras. But if you want a good, colorful, accurate image taken in daylight of nature, you can't go wrong with any of these cameras with the CCD sensor. And Canon should revisit making more of them. There's a reason NASA is still using CCDs. Okay, this is our first example of what I'm talking about here with hue errors in CMOS sensors. The image here on the left was taken with a Canon Powershot L330HS camera. The image on the right was taken with a Canon A620 camera. The camera on the right uses a CCD. The camera on the left uses a CMOS sensor. These were both taken with the white balance set to daylight. Alright, so they both have the same white balance preset on the camera. However, we have completely different results. The image on the left appears to be too cool. Now you notice how the sky is lacking any cyan or aqua tones that are normally found. And on the right, the sky looks more like you'd normally see it. And the pines are yellowish green, whereas on the left, the pines are just green. So let's now take a look at the finer details. Okay, so we are looking at a comparison of the finer details of this image. Just move this a little more over here. You can see half your screen here. Is the CCD on the right and the CMOS sensor on the left. And you can see that the CCD sensor is definitely doing a better job saturating the green yellowish color of the pines. Whereas the colors of the pines on the CMOS sensor here from the 330HS are muted. Now I'm going to show you some more examples of this, and you should be able to clearly see the difference in the sky U. The sky U here with the CCD sensor is much more accurate, whereas on the left with the CMOS sensor it's way too blue. It's shifted way too blue, and as a result it's not natural looking. Now I want to take another look at things here. This is lower down in the picture, and what you want to take a look at here, again, on the left is the CMOS sensor of the ELF330HS, and on the right is the CCD sensor of the A620. And you'll notice that the image on the right is definitely warmer. You notice that there's much more, it definitely picks up better on the red of the pine needles, the fallen pine needles on the ground. Whereas the image on the left is kind of like the red is just muted. And the pines themselves, if you look closely, you will see that it is a, like I said, pines are sort of a green, somewhat yellowish green. This is just a green. It's lacking the yellow, reddish warmth that the image on the right has. And this is another flaw of the CMOS sensors. They can't pick up these yellowish, greenish shades very well. Okay, so we're looking at another set of images here. And again, the image on the left is from the 330HS, and the image on the right is from another CCD camera, the Canon G11. And you'll see right away, if you look at the sky tones, you'll see once again that the sky is way too cool on the left, and it's almost pinkish, which again is not, accurate at all one bit. And you'll notice that the image on the right, the sky is much more normal looking. And again, the greens of the pines pop better, and the image on the left just looks unnatural, whereas the image on the right looks much more natural. And this is a camera on the right here is a Canon Powershot G11, and the camera on the left is a Canon ELF330HS. Alright, let's look at another set of images here. Camera on the right is the Canon Powershot A620, obviously one of my favorites. And the camera on the left, which is also a Canon, is the S110. So figured we'll try a different CMOS sensor camera. This is from the S110 camera. Both cameras are set to daylight white balance. And again, we see the same problem. The image on the left is way too cool, and the skies are way too, unnaturally blue looking. The yellow and the warmth of the pine foliage is muted with the image on the left. But the image on the right is much more true to life from the Canon Powershot A620 with the CCD sensor. And I want to share with you another set of images. The image on the left taken with the 330HS. The image on the right taken with the G11. Both Canons, of course. G11 uses a CCD chip, and on the left we have the CMOS chip. Now I manually set the white balance using a gray card, and it still does not look proper, because what we've done now is we've managed to warm up the white balance on the 330HS, which was kind of cool. But now we've warmed it up too much. We're trying to get the sky the right shade of blue that is in the G11, which is off to the right, but we can't do that. And instead now we've warmed up the image, and now the reds aren't even showing properly here. The reds from the pine needles, which you see here in the G11 image, are way too muted on the 330HS. So bottom line is you just can't get an accurate image out of a CMOS chip with daylight and if you're taking pictures of trees. And here is another comparison. S110 on the left and the A620 on the right. And you can see again a clear difference that the warm tones of the A620 on the left are not being replicated by the S110 on the, I'm sorry, did I say, the warm tones of the A620 on the right over here are not being replicated by the S110 over here on the left. And again, you can see that the greens of the pines are just not natural, and the sky is also shifted way too much toward the cool blue angle when the sky is really a greenish or golden blue or a cyan blue. And now these particular two shots, I went out of my way and used a gray card to set the white balance manually on both cameras, and the same result has happened here, as you can see. Which should tell you something, that CMOS sensors are not able to properly replicate colors in daylight. But let's go one step further. Now we have one more trick up our sleeves here, and with the Canon S110 here on the left, you can shoot an image in RAW mode, CR2, which the software comes with the camera, you can process it. So here we have the image on the left, which is from a RAW file of the Canon Powershot S110. I'm sorry, it's late. And on the right, an image from the A620, a JPEG. All right, now the A620 again looks much more accurate, much more pleasing to look at. And the image on the left is just blah. You know, nothing is popping out at you, and it's just too cool, too blue, and the U is off. The image on the right has a proper U. The image on the left, the U is off. So if we go and we look at some of the tools in the Digital Photo Professional, there are certain things we could do. Now, first of all, just say, oh, maybe the white balance is off. Well, let's see. Let's just do a balance on here. Doesn't really do anything. I've already done that. All right, so we've done that. What if I switch it to daylight? Nope, that doesn't solve it either. Auto? A little bit, but still not the same. So what do we do here? Do we do color temperature? Do we change the color temperature? Does that change anything? The sky still doesn't pop. The foliage still isn't natural. Even if we go and look at this image, it's still not even close to this image. So even working with the raw image, it is not easy to get these colors out of a CMOS, at least the Canon compacts. And you're like, okay, well, let's just go in here and we'll go back to daylight, and we'll just hit tune. Well, maybe if we tune the image, maybe that'll straighten it out. We need to get more greens. But now the colors are all off. So the camera cannot produce accurate hues in daylight. And this is a problem with all of the Canon CMOS chip compacts. And it's a serious problem that people don't seem to be aware of or put too much importance on. Maybe I'm not doing something right. There's one more thing we could do. We could put this to portrait. Does that make it any better? That makes it a little better, but now it just looks off. All right? Maybe faithful. Maybe that'll do it. That's a little too warm now. So the sky hue is off because the representation of the colors, which is hue, output from the CMOS sensor, cannot properly pick up the range of greens and blues in the sky. And if you're taking pictures of trees, that pretty much makes CMOS cameras useless.
Alright, so those are some comparison photos between CCD sensor-based cameras and CMOS-based cameras. And CMOS has its advantages. For low light, it's great. but and for certain challenging lighting situations, it's better. Obviously, the sensors used in big DSLR cameras are CMOS sensors, but those are much larger than the smaller ones that are based in consumer point-and-shoot cameras. And the problem is that we have a problem, at least on the Canon side, where the classic Canon colors look. If you've been using Canons, pretty much you know that the Canon color is like a saturated, warm look to the image. But the images with the newest cameras have gotten cool, and the colors are subdued, and the images don't pop, and the hues are off. And it's a serious problem. So, I want you to, if you've been taking pictures, please vote in this poll that I have. Which sensor do you think more accurately replicated color? The CCD or the CMOS? It's not a choice between what you like better. It's a choice between which sensor more accurately reproduced the colors, particularly in daylight, whether that be CCD or CMOS. Personally, I wish Canon would stick with making CCD cameras for people who do take daylight photos, because there's a clear advantage to continuing to use them. However, you know, they don't making any new ones, so you always have to look on eBay or some other site to get a used camera. That's the way you have to go. But hey, there are people that still shoot film because they like the way it looks. So if I want to still shoot with CCDs, so be it. So take it easy. Thank you for watching, and please let me know your thoughts on this.